Excited to be here today. I'm Tiffany Rolfe, as she mentioned, and I'm from a company called Co-Collective. It's a strategy and innovation company.
And I'm Kit Krugman, and I'm our chief curator. So what that means, for those of you who don't know, is we look at talent from its broadest perspective. So I oversee full-time, freelance, and then our partner network called Co-Conspirators.
Yeah. And my background, I was at a place called Crispin Porter Bogusky for 10 years, straight out of school, and kind of grew up there, and have been at Co for the last 4 years, trying to do an experiment in a new sort of agency. So there's some learnings here that we hopefully can share. Yeah. And Kit's been there as my partner in crime. She came from...
Yeah, my background is in advertising. I started at Mullen actually as a designer on the new business team, and then moved over to manage the creative department there. Spent a couple years at Johannes Leonardo managing the creative department there, and then joined Co almost 3 years ago now. So I've been there with Tiff ever since.
Yeah, and we're excited to talk to you guys. We've been at Co together working on really trying to recruit creative unicorns, which is what we always call them, and we'll talk a little bit about like the pain of that and the process of that and how that sort of changed today. So just to start, go backwards in time a little bit. And when I was in school and there were still blacksmiths, apparently, it wasn't actually that far off, actually, from the simplicity of a blacksmith, when books were being formed when I was coming out of school. It's like you knew you had to do like 6 campaigns and you had 3 executions and they were TV. It was super easy, It was still somehow really hard, but it was a TV spot. It was it was a couple of print ads. It was a radio spot even, and you sort of knew the things you needed, and it fit really kind of tightly into that box, and you could get a job with that, and that's what they were looking for. They were looking for this pretty, rigid formula of things from you.
And that also informed how you would build a team, right? So as an organization, you would structure a team. Okay, we need somebody to do copy and we need somebody to do art direction. And
often those were 2 dudes that looked like this that sat like at a coffee shop. So this next slide, this is a dense slide, but just to kind of talk a little bit about sort of our philosophy on the world and some of the things that we're trying to solve. Co is strategy and innovation. Now we still, work with brands. We help them solve their problems. I think just like, an agency, goes after solving problems, but we end up solving in a different way. And we actually think the best businesses today are really moving from this idea of just storytelling into story doing. And that's, everything that you do through your company says something about you. So the experiences you make, the culture you create, all those things are sort of open and transparent and can often do, a better job really bringing your story into the world than just paid advertising. And so with these sorts of things that you might make on any given day, and, just to talk a little bit about some of those things, they take the shape of many forms. Red Bull is out there, and their story really at the core, it's not really about a campaign, but it's about helping everyone live a life to the absolute extreme. And the things that they do are, extreme sports. They create their own sports. They drop people, out of outer space. Those things all are communications around the brand or experiences around the brand that help, convey that to everybody. And these are not things necessarily that we've worked on, but just, the philosophy behind them and the kinds of challenges that we work on. Nike, is about bringing inspiration and innovation to every athlete in the world. And they're creating, things like Fuel Band and products and experiences. And those, again, do as good, as better of a job, than let's say traditional advertising. Target, Tesla, all sort of believing in that sort of philosophy of this higher mission, higher order, and what are all the things that you're going to do in the world to bring that to life. And those are, a lot of the challenges that we get. We work with brands. They come to us, and we often say they don't necessarily know what they need. They don't come to us saying, I need an ad or I need a this. I just know this thing hurts. This thing hurts right here. How do we solve it? And we don't know the things that we're going to make when we start to work on those things. And they could take the shape of all these different forms. And so when you have that as a task, how do you create teams? How do you build the right combination of skills and talents and people to solve potentially any sort of problem in any way, which can be a challenge to recruit and build teams.
So when we look at all those potential outcomes, we say, okay, well, if we just have a copywriter and an art director, that's not going to be enough, right? So we need a digital designer, we need a product designer, we need a user experience designer. And then all of a sudden you have an entire room full of people.
And we're paying them to work on their projects.
And then for the next project, maybe you don't need all those people anymore. So you start to think, okay, how do I design an organization that actually is the right shape? And how do I find people that maybe have more skill sets than just one?
And that is the elusive unicorn. I mean, this was something that we and others, have talked about. There was this sort of mythical, magical being that could do it all and had all these multiple talents in one. And they were, like beautiful, glowing things in the forest in terms of trying to find. And it was that, we would hear about this person that could do multiple things, and we would be trying to recruit them. And, it's interesting because as we had been doing that over the years, actually, that has been changing, and people and students are sort of catching up with that notion.
Yeah, so all of a sudden, you're starting to see portfolios where somebody has a product, a service, an experience, and you're like, oh my God, this is amazing.
And actually, that's to a credit, I think, of the schools, and I think the way that young people are just growing up today. I mean, they have all the tools at their disposal. They're already learning how to publish content for themselves. They're teaching themselves how to shoot and edit and, put filters on things and have a point of view and even have their own audiences and things. And it's just, it's a different world where they're sort of naturally becoming unicorns, and the schools are sort of embracing that. But there's actually, more and more unicorns in this world now. There's an abundance of unicorns. We actually think, though, that the issue is not so much where are these unicorns and where they exist, but how do, I think, agencies and companies sort of embrace them and create an environment for them to be sort of inspired and do great work and work in different ways. And so that's sort of what Kit wanted to talk a little bit about.
Yeah, and ultimately, as an educator, you're limited by the opportunities out there, right? So if people are hiring for art directors and copywriters, and you're building a book that is a unicorn book, and you're worried that the person's not going to get a job, right? So I think there's
that used to be the case. Yeah. I mean, I remember coming out of school, they'd be like, "Oh, I wouldn't put this writing thing in here. You're an art director." It was actually disservice. If you didn't come in really clearly defined, you might not get a job. Yeah. So I had to pull things out of my book that showed I had different talents, or it might confuse someone. And that's actually, I think, a different situation now, but surprisingly, a lot of agencies still haven't sort of evolved to embrace that philosophy.
Yeah, and I think so. There's two sides to this coin, right? You have to be teaching unicorns, but you also have to adapt as an organization. So we've been seeing stuff happening out in the industry that we're really excited about and wanted to talk to you about.
Some things that we're doing as well.
And some things that we're doing as well. So the first idea for us is not putting hybrids in a box. We've been really focused on the idea of titles and how they should evolve. So instead of calling people an art director, for instance, how can you broaden that title to actually encompass the fact that they can bring a lot more to the table? One thing that we've done at Co actually is started using hashtags. So we have titles like creator and then hashtags signifying the other capabilities they have. So on the next slide, you'll see a couple of our folks who have art direction skills.
They're also very moody, apparently, too.
Very serious.
Sexy and moody.
Yeah. So design skills, coding skills, branding skills, and actually actively embracing the fact that people are bringing way more to the table, as opposed to siphoning off side projects and saying, for your day job, you do this, but then outside of work, you do all of this other stuff. So
and it actually, besides helping them sort of embrace all the aspects of their talents and be able to fulfill and use those talents, it actually helped us as a business too, in terms of when we have to build a team and we need to know who has some editing on the side, and this, rather than freelance always or whatever, we could actually, search within our system and find people that actually, oh, well, I didn't know he also could illustrate. And you'd be surprised at sort of the hidden talents and the amazing things people can do if you just sort of allow that stuff to be more transparent.
The other thing we're finding is that a lot of millennials are much more interested in being at an organization where their purpose is aligned, right? So focusing less on saying, hey, compensation is a straightforward thing. How do we rethink that? How do we say, this is the kind of experience that you're going to get at an organization? And how are our values actually aligned with your values? Having, I think, in your book, what kind of work you want to work on is really important.
Because they want to use that multi sort of disciplined skill thing to use use it for things that they care about and want to use it for. So not just like making sure they use it, but to what end?
Exactly. And I think the other thing we've found is instead of designing for a career, designing for experiences, both on the school side and the organization side, right? Because we're not looking at people who stay at an organization for 30 years anymore. We're looking at people that come in and out of organizations for 2-3 years tops, right? So they're looking for a mutually beneficial experience from the organization to the employee, right? The other idea is we used to think of a career as something that was really straight and narrow, right? You went from junior art director to senior art director. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but the idea that actually you're interested in growing in multi-dimensions, right? You're interested in also working on your strategic skills, and you don't need to be on the business side or on the creative side, right? So how do you actually enable that kind of growth?
Yeah, and you find people that like want to do one thing for a while and then go down another path and kind of push that one talent that they have. We have a strategist who came to me and said, you know, I want to work as being a creative for the next few months. Is that okay? And I was like, well, yeah, like that's what we're supposed to be able to embrace. And actually, you know, it's a great time to have creative thinkers that are super strategic. So embracing those sorts of challenges and not being afraid of sort of breaking those walls.
The other thing is, as Tiff mentioned before, I think we have kids coming out of school that actually know way more than we do. So how do you make that a two-way street to actually enable people to be educating us as we're educating them? So from this idea of being an apprentice to a blacksmith in a blacksmith model to actually shifting to say, hey, what can we learn about the newest technology, about the newest tools, and how you do it?
Yeah, we do something called maker lunches, and we let, you know, people within the organization help and share a talent and skill that they have. And, you know, maybe they're doing some sort of tutorial on memes. Who knows? You know, there's some people in an organization who have to learn about memes even. And that's an opportunity to, again, to have everyone in the in your company sort of embrace this multi-talented generation.
Yeah. We had a young creative do a presentation workshop, which was amazing. I mean, it was incredible because we had this young creative teaching other people how to present. And the way that she did it was incredible. We all came away. I was like, this is amazing. I just learned so much from you. So I think creating those opportunities, both inside of school and teaching kids that, hey, you can actually teach other people around you, and you should.
So now that they know everything, apparently, and think they do, what's left for you guys to teach? You know, what's left for them to learn? You know, because I think there is a little bit of that, like, well, shit, if they know how to like design already and, you know, shoot photos already and edit already, and they have their own social media followings and everything, like what as teachers and, you know, and institutions can we actually do to help them? And we do think there are things still left to learn. Maybe they don't always think there are. There were supposed to be students in here, so I can actually talk about them now that they're not here. But, you know, I think it's changing the mindset, you know, how you work and the way you approach it, and being more open to the kinds of assignments and the way of teaching. And so to go back to that idea of, you know, the story at the center and how to best convey that in so many different ways, we talk about moving from campaigns to a quest. You know, campaigns is really about what the company's needs are. It's like, I have this message I want to get out to the world, and I'm going to put it out every 3 months, you know, and it's about this one topic. I need to sell a certain amount of widgets or whatever. And when you know, embrace this idea of what is the company's, you know, sort of bigger quest in the world, this story that's at the core of their DNA as a brand that goes above and beyond sort of the day-to-day selling. And it's like, what would be bad in the world if they were to be gone? You know, it has some purpose built into it, but it also is a story, not a campaign, that can influence the whole organization and everything they do. So this should be driving, you know, the culture that brand is creating, you know, the experiences that they're putting out in the world, the products that they make, not just, you know, leaving the story for the end, you know, when advertising comes to be. And so I think helping students get more at the core of a brand story versus just doing campaigns will help them be able to solve in a lot of different ways. Because this is unchanging. You always need sort of that core story of a brand, but how that comes to life and in what form, you know, that means that it can be whatever it takes, because technology is changing, you know, every single day. So you can't really depend on just one execution or medium to solve things. There are skills that they have. They are social posting. They are publishing to their own, communities and audiences every day. They're deciding what images to put out there, what kind of brand they're building, for themselves. They're engaging with their personal communities, and that is actually a skill that brands need to learn. I mean, brands are now actually looking at people and individuals. YouTube's one of our main clients, and some of the creators on the platform, have 5 million followers, much bigger than any sort of brand out there. And the way that they are engaging with their communities and bringing people into a conversation and not just putting messages out there is the way that all brands have to behave. And actually to learn from students and help them transition, their sort of personal posting and way of communicating with the world into how maybe a brand can do that and translate it for brands is something that I think is a beneficial thing to make use of in terms of their talents. More than multidisciplined, creative people, young people are multimedias in and of themselves. This guy on the left happens to be Kit's brother.
Transparency, that's my brother.
And he built his own Instagram following. He has 200,000 followers. He did it through approaching, was it the Met, in terms of being their Instagram person. He ended up going and becoming a creative / producer, weird hybrid at BBDO, and use that for brands. And he, is as influential as some of the brands he's working on. There's a Havas ECD who has 700,000 followers on his photography Instagram account, and he has same sort of medium and impact that some of the brands has that he works on. And so thinking about I think as young creative people, how are they building their own sort of brands and understanding and audiences around them is going to be an important part of that. We don't hire directors, or a lot of agencies don't hire directors today anymore that are just good directors. Those directors need to have their own followings. They have to have people in an audience that come along with them. And I think what's going to be expected of creatives too is that they have an audience around them that they can tap into. And those are going to be the creatives that are getting hired even more so than just talented creative people. Oh, look, it's our selfie. So, going from selfies, we're really bad at selfies because we're older and don't know how to get the right. It took me 10 poses to try to get a selfie pose. But this idea of, we're in this world now where we have a camera turned on ourselves, especially, our students and young people. It's all about me. And so I think what you can do as educators is help them sort of turn the camera outwards, as they are discovering themselves, how do you tap into other people? And the big thing that we do as problem solvers for brands is really helping them understand people and connect with people in a real way. And so helping them with empathy and understanding others, not just, what's going on here, is something that I think to do really great work, for brands, you have to be able to understand and embrace. And so those sorts of challenges I think are important as educators. Also, we talked a lot about personal skills. A lot of people have and personal skills that they've been using for their own whatever purposes. And it's about, I think, two things. It's honing in on, and strengthening certain skills, because it's not just about being okay at everything, but I think there still is a superpower you as a creative should have. You still need to lean into something that is sort of your core strength, but you need to have the ability to multi-dimensionalize and use it in different ways. But you also have to figure out how to use those skills with other people. And so more and more projects being collaborative across disciplines, coming together in different ways. It's hard to connect my skills with your skills. And so the more that you can bring people together to solve things and have to navigate and negotiate who uses what for when, and break down the barriers of people's roles, is going to be more and more important, because the amount of kinds of people and different people from different backgrounds coming into a room to solve things is just growing even more, whether that's getting really deep with clients. I mean, we are in a pitch right now where we got briefed 3 days ago and we have to show work to the client tomorrow. And there's no going away and coming with the idea. It's we're showing them, we're exposing, everything as we go and bringing them into the process. And that is just more and more, based on how fast things move and just the way things work and how much information you need from other people to solve things. The collaboration side of it's just really, really critical. And we're going from the latest tech and tools to still the latest tech and tools. I mean, they're always going to be new things, right? There's always like the new gadget. It's funny, we were talking about like, you can always tell a student's book, you could almost date it to the year and the semester based on like, oh, look, they've got the QR code. Like everyone from 2014 has the QR code. And I think there's this thing that like, oh, we need to have that new thing. And like, if someone came to me and had all radio, I'd be like, holy shit, this is so innovative. It's all about what's right for the brand, right? And using, these are about tools that you can use and use in different ways. And you now just have more things to express yourself through. But it really gets back to that core story and what are the best ways to bring that to life. It isn't meaning not using technology. It's about staying curious and experimenting, but always deciding, what are the right things to use, not the right gimmicks to put in your book. So to end, we needed another sort of mythical creature, but it wasn't so much just about magical, mythical. This is, it's really about being a shapeshifter. We all, I think, have to be shapeshifters. I had a teacher who used to give the same assignment. For 10 years, I knew people that got the Magic Mountain, Six Flags Magic Mountain assignment. For 10 years, one ad, just talk about Magic Mountain. And we just can't do that anymore. We have to, I think, challenge ourselves, as teachers, as creative people and bosses or whatever, to challenge people and to come up with new things to solve and solve in all different ways. And things are not going to stabilize. It's just going to change even more. And I think if we all just think of ourselves more as shapeshifters, beyond unicorns, we're in a better place.
Yeah. The only thing I'd add to that is just going through the process of how you would solve a problem under these circumstances. How would you solve a problem under these circumstances? How would you solve a problem in this year and this time? Those are the kind of challenges that we're actually all going to be facing. Like we need to be able to adapt both as businesses and
but hopefully you'll look like a much nicer, friendlier version of the shapeshifter than this one. Thank you.